Hey YouTubers, and welcome back to this type of video series. It's not necessarily a dedicated series on my channel, but just something fun to talk about, where I talk about one of the things introduced in one of the greater aspects of Dragon Ball Super, the extended universe, if you will, and we discuss as a community how you would actually introduce that in Dragon Ball Super if it were ever to actually be introduced. And today we're going to be talking about Cooler's final form and also the Revenge of Cooler, or even Cooler Returns, because hell, is a lot of people really hate that movie. I also think it's pretty cool. I mean, just like a metal Cooler and the big Getty star and everything else like that, that is really kind of cool. I would really like to see them introduce that in some way, shape, or form down the line, considering almost everything we know about all these multi-universes. I mean, basically anything is possible. Well, with that said, I want to go back over a couple of lines that I mentioned and I talked about before recently, and also a lot of people in the comment section were talking about as well, because it's really kind of strange. Now, Dragon Ball Super has done this before, where they kind of say things just to kind of say things, and it's not necessarily building to anything much bigger, or there's no bigger ramification of the story than just actually saying that particular line. But with that being said, in episode 108, although I understand, and I did an entire video on it if you want my thoughts and opinions about whether or not Frost will actually be coming back after he was literally erased by the Xenos in episode 108. But before all of that, you had Frieza and Frost actually really talking for the very first time in really any way that was meaningful. And during the fight with Gohan, Frieza actually turns into his golden form, and he's like, look, you know, you can get to this form if you want to, you just have to train for it. And he's like, I had no idea you could do that. And Frieza's like, yeah, but it might not be golden, it might be something completely different. And I can't be the only one whose mind turned directly to the fifth form of Cooler in any kind of future aspect with Frost. And as I said in my previous video, I really hope they find a way to actually bring back Frost. I mean, you might have a different opinion, but personally, I think Frost is probably one of the cooler characters in Dragon Ball. I had my reservations at first, but I feel like he could have a severe character arc, a heel turn, if you will, and give us a Frieza type of character that we could actually root for some time down the line. And just simply erasing him just because we have another Frieza, the Frieza that we're all kind of used to in this particular tournament, it just feels like a waste in my opinion. But if they figure out a way to actually bring him back and almost everyone else from this tournament back, which they might not do, I really kind of hope they don't do, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, it does sound like something Dragon Ball might end up doing sometime down the line. But if they end up finding a way to bring Frost back, I want to actually see Frost come back and have a revenge plan for Frieza. So basically adapting Cooler's revenge, but instead of going in and getting revenge against Goku, you have Frost coming in and actually going to train. Maybe he goes to Vados, maybe he goes to Hit, maybe he goes to the Saiyan Force or something, and you have somewhat of a changing personality with him. I mean, this is the second time he's fought for Universe 6. This is the second time he tried to cheat his way in. And the first time, he was really maniacal. He was using stuff that he had manipulated his body for, with the needle that he had to take out Goku and Piccolo during the Champa Arc Universe 6 versus Universe 11 tournament. At this time, though, you get to see him, he's changed a little bit. You know, at the beginning, when Hit went to go recruit him, he was actually manipulating his body, which is one of the things that makes me think that, yeah, he could potentially have some kind of a cooler form, because unlike Frieza, and I know that Frost and Frieza have manipulated their bodies before, their first, second, third, and fourth form are basically the exact same thing, so we don't necessarily sure whether or not Frieza picked those forms. I mean, back in the original manga, he did say that he actually picked those forms and he manipulated his body as such, and the golden form really kind of shows that, yeah, he can just basically manipulate his body whenever he gets these new transformations, considering the fact that gold was just simply to, I guess, insult the Saiyans and their Super Saiyan form. But Frost seems to be able to do something that Frieza can't. He manipulates his body to have these needles that he puts in his tail or his foot or his arm or anything else like that. So potentially he might be able to evolve his body to look something like Cooler. I don't necessarily think it would be that much of a stretch given what we've seen from Frost, and at the same time what Frieza said in episode 108. So they figure out a way to bring back Frost. Let's say that after all this tournament, they either wish back all the universes, which would be kind of stupid considering how they've built this entire tournament and how they built this entire arc, but they might also just bring back everyone that Zeno erased during this and actually disperse them either into the winning universe, considering the fact this actual tournament started with the Supreme Kai saying that there was only 28 living life form planets on Universe 7, which is weird considering that feels a little low, but if they were building up this entire arc on the idea that the losers of these universes, which probably shouldn't have a lot more than 28, would go in and live in one whole universe where you have basically 8 universes living in a huge community in one universe, or they're separately dispersed out from a lot of other universes, and that way you kind of have a situation where Vegeta and Kaba, the Sadal Force, Hit, and all these other people can run freely around this place or that place, and also kind of open up a door for Champa and Beerus to be living together, or maybe even potentially them working together, or one of them actually retiring, which would be kind of cool for their particular characters, considering the fact that they're really lazy. But you also have the chance to bring back Frost. So as I said, you have Frost going to train with Vados or Hit or the Sadal Force or somebody, maybe even Kale and Caulifla. It would actually be kind of cool to have Frost actually go train with Saiyans, considering everything that we know Frieza is with the particular Saiyans, in order to actually figure out how to transform. Plus, we've also seen from the first tournament to this tournament, Frost actually shows his willingness to work with his teammates, considering the fact that he was also working with Magetta in order to be the tank for him to go and take out as many people as possible. Plus, he was also really welcome to work with Frieza, so we know that he can be a team player whenever he can be. So you have Frost sitting there training with, let's just say, the Sadal Force, and he ends up actually achieving this new form, and it brings him a whole lot of new power. And instead of Frost going to fight Goku or Gohan or Universe 7 people, his literal revenge is actually going to fight Frieza. And we get to see that Frieza versus Frost fight that all of us have always wanted on a fair playing ground, and kind of giving us that thing that we've always wanted since the Cooler movies, where we actually get to see Frieza versus Cooler, but in this case it's Frost, but he has Cooler's 5th form, so it actually works out that way. I would really like to see that, considering the fact that it really opens up the door for a lot of other things, not only bringing back most of the people who died, giving them kind of an easier way to interact with each other, maybe even setting up stories further on in the future, and also something like this would make sure that Frieza doesn't necessarily die at the end. I don't necessarily think, as much as he's being overused with this particular series, or almost Dragon Ball in general, I kind of want Frieza to stay around. I feel like even though his return in Fakatsu no F was kind of underwhelming, this particular return for him has been so amazing that I would actually really like to see Frieza continue to stay on. Even if he's not a part of the main cast, maybe he's out there doing his own thing and still being kind of a dick, but maybe Zeno or something, considering there's so many more planets and so many more people in the universe, they consider the fact that him going around and doing his thing is actually better for the mortal level, and then they shore up the situation in that way. And then maybe you can have him as an antagonizing force or as kind of a friendly force if the situation calls for it later on, and always have the chance to actually reuse him. I think killing him off right now would be kind of a waste, considering everything that we've gotten from him and some of the cooler scenes that we can get from him in the future, especially if they do something like that. Especially if they have Frost come back and want revenge on Frieza, considering how they can draw in other characters like Vegeta and Goku and Goten, Trunks, Gohan, Kaba, Kale, Caulifla, Beerus, Whis, Champa, Hit, and everyone else into that particular story. Or maybe just kind of do a Planet Hulk thing where if they bring back Frost and he actually does discover this power, and let's say this power, if you want to scale it upwards, because this is all just kind of speculative, you have him creating this power and it makes him much stronger than Golden Frieza, considering the fact that when we met Frost, he was actually already stronger than Frieza, because Goku was having somewhat of a hard time with him, not necessarily going all out, but he was definitely in his Super Saiyan form in Dragon Ball Super with that 50 times multiplier. And I'm not much of a power scaler, but I do know that Goku's base form right now is far stronger than it was on Namek. So obviously Frost transforming into something on par with Golden Frieza, or at least a new transformation the same way that Frieza had at the beginning of Fakatsu no F, would be outrageously strong. So if you have Frost come back, whether he gets it with himself or someone else trains him and he figures out how to do it that way, it would be interesting to have somewhat of a Planet Hulk situation where instead of just going and getting revenge on Frieza or Goku or anyone else, he literally goes back and gets revenge on everyone who slighted him in the slightest. So you have him going to fight Hit, you have him going to fight Frieza, Gohan, Vegeta, Master Roshi, even Champa. That would be pretty awesome, just considering him just completely curb stomping an entire universe or multiverse or something else like that. Considering the fact that we kind of know who this person is, we know the type of power that he can achieve, and also the fifth cooler form is so awesome, and I would actually really like to see that be put in this particular show in one way, shape, or form sometime down the line. So I know, guys, that was a lot to take in. I want everyone's thoughts and opinions about this in the comment section below. Do you think Frieza's form or Frieza himself is being too overused? Are you glad that Frost is gone, or would you like to see him come back in this way or some other way that you're going to share in the comment section below? But with that being said, guys, I hope everyone has a good day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button. It's going to notify you every single time I upload. But with that being said, guys, it's been real.